Welcome to the introduction to our PDU. This lesson is our introductory lesson as to what is rigor. To be able to really engage with this PDU, we needed a baseline. We needed a common understanding as to what this big word means. This word can carry a lot of emotion with it. It can carry a lot of baggage sometimes. I know that I have baggage from my first principal when I was a first year teacher, and her definition of rigor was that you were challenging students beyond their ability, basically. You're pushing students really, really hard. And that's not what rigor is. And it took me a few years to really figure out that rigor is the appropriate level of challenge. So I have baggage when it comes to rigor myself. A lot of times, too, rigor comes with leap connotations. I2 is a hard to measure indicator. Just honestly, it's been my experience as looking at it on Leap and being evaluated that way. It can carry a lot with it. But together, I think that we'll all be able to come up with a good definition and good understanding of what rigor is. And I'm really interested to see in the do now. If you haven't done the do now already, please stop and do that and give your definition of rigor, and we can engage with this word. So to start off, I always like to start with the why. Those of you guys who have been in my PDs before, which is almost all of you, will know that I'm a big why person before we move anything else. Part of that is my ADD, and if I don't get interested in a subject, then I'm not going to be engaged with it, and therefore I'm not going to pay attention in the least bit. So to start off, the why is this report, and I've linked this in our Schoology folder for this lesson, is the opportunity myth. It's a report by TNTP, which is an education kind of like a big research group. And they went into different school systems across the country, analyzed a whole bunch of lessons and student work, and did observations, and they came up with this opportunity myth. What did they see when they went across? And this is really our why, is that students spend an insane amount of time not doing grade level tasks. And when we say grade level task, it means that it's appropriate for their age level. So a seventh grader doing seventh grade work. Now, does a seventh grader always do seventh grade work? No, sometimes they might need to do sixth grade work if they're a little behind in a subject, or maybe they're doing eighth grade work. But for the most part, our students need to be doing grade level work. Even if they're behind, we can help push them, and there's actually great research on that. So you can see here 500 hours of wasted instruction time because it wasn't appropriately grade level. That's just insane. Basically, half the year is wasted by these thousands of observations of not using enough rigor. And that rigor is more seen in students that are white, that come from more affluent backgrounds, and is less so in minorities and students that come from more challenging backgrounds and don't have the necessary opportunities. And that's kind of where this term, the opportunity myth, comes from, is that we think that we're challenging all of our students, but it doesn't always happen that way. I actually had a teacher earlier in the year. It wasn't at our school, so I'm not giving anything away, but she really pushed back when I asked her about the rigor level in her class, and she said, "Well, you don't know my students. You don't know what they're capable of. My students can't do this." And I was just really taken back, and I said, "Well, you're not challenging your students. Of course, they're not going to rise to the challenge unless you actually give them the challenge. If you're always giving them work that they're capable of doing, they'll do that work, but then they're not going to grow." Also, in the opportunity myth, it really talks about students getting appropriate rigor, appropriate grade level content, and then rising to the occasion. That students that were in a grade appropriate assignment classroom, it's a mouthful there, gained 2 months of learning compared to their peers, which we can see all the time. Is that we know that those high quality classrooms that our students are engaged in are growing so much more than the teachers that are struggling, the teachers that maybe need a little bit more support or are getting their feet underneath them, right? And that's what we're here for. We're here to support each other. And that right down here, you can see this chart really speaks for itself. Is that students of color are in classrooms that sometimes have no assignments. that are grade level appropriate for them, which is just a really sad thing to see, compared to especially white students. But even 12%, I would say, for our white students across America on average is far too low too. Is that we have to be challenging our students. They can rise to this. If we give them appropriately rigorous activities, they can do it. Our students here at Hamilton are little huskies. They can do it. Now that we have the why, um, what is rigor? According to DPS, right? Of course, we had to go there because DPS has all of this information as to what they deem is rigorous, and of course, the LEAP framework. And I know LEAP can carry a lot of connotations. It can be subjective in a lot of ways too, so I'm just going to throw that out there. But it does have really good verbiage and can help us get our minds around rigor and give us some good measures as to what to look for and how to measure it for rigor. So if you can see here, obviously we always want to be in the effective and the distinguished categories. So I'm actually going to pause right here and give you guys some time just to read through this. Okay, feel free if you need more time to pause the video and read through these. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already read these, but it's good just to kind of revisit. And then here are our indicators, things that you can actually see in the classroom that are appropriately rigorous. And again, I'll give you guys some time. Again, feel free to pause if you want more time. And this is linked into our resources for today is here's my keys to rigor. These are the things that I would really like us to focus on. As you can see, there are a ton of things that we could work on. We could work on each one of these indicators going forward on rigor, but we won't have time in our PDU. So here's the ones that we're really going to focus on. To start off, next time our next lesson is about knowing your students. You can't challenge students unless you know what their level are, right? You can't know to push them, or if you're pushing them too far without knowing where they are. Also, productive struggle. I used to work at a Montessori school, and this is something that they taught all the time. They would actually be very conscious about teachers never walking over to help a student unless they were struggling beyond their ability. And I think that a lot of times in education, we go and we bail out our students. We can give our students a productive struggle. And this is the term that's in the rubric and the indicators, is increasing complex and challenging and or stimulating work. Is it just a really good kind of well-rounded definition of work that is rigorous. It's challenging, it's complex, it's stimulating to the students. Is a great way to start. Evaluation. Students are self-evaluating and they're evaluating others, and this oftentimes is come up through reflection time and working with other students. Explaining reasoning. This is a big one I know a lot of our teachers are working on across the school, is actually having students explain the reasonings. Our students are really good at citing evidence, but then that explaining the E of race is something that they're lacking. And then that student supports are given and taken away. I think, again, we're really good at Hamilton and DPS of giving our students supports. A lot of times, I'll see sentence stems passed out in the classroom when an assignment comes up. Great. But does everybody need a sentence stem? Because sometimes they need to be taken away from our students as well. And that can be challenging, right? Is that we want to give students supports, but sometimes, we need to take away. the supports to give them the appropriate rigor. And then multiple views and perspectives. This is something that technology can really help expand beyond what our little 12-year-old students know and get exposed to, is different worldviews, different perspectives, different ideas that can challenge them in new ways and really big rigorous. So I'm really excited to be working with all of you guys on rigor. I hope today kind of got your brain flowing when it came to rigor and what we're going to be doing for the rest of the time. So come back about every week and a half. I'll be posting a new lesson. You'll get the notices in Schoology, and we'll keep going through our Rigor PDU. Thank you guys. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm here to support you in any way I can. Thanks.